The Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where we will shatter your reality to bring you closer to the truth.
All right, welcome back to another live show. We have the awesome She Squatchers with us, Jenna and Jen. They are a group of all-female group who utilize some very interesting techniques and abilities in their search for the hunt of Sasquatch. Jen, tell us, what is all the She Squatchers about? What do you guys exactly do?
Well, we came together in 2015, and we started out with Lauren Coleman's suggestion, which was to bring women into the woods without men, dogs, or guns. He thought that would be more likely to bring some Bigfoot closer in to have a little look-see at some ladies. But we wanted to do what his suggestion was. And well, I was interviewing him for my then paranormal radio show. And I didn't really know anything about Bigfoot at the time, but he interested me enough to decide to try it. So I asked some ladies to go out with me and give it a try. But on top of his idea, I wanted to see if we could incorporate using our psychic abilities to see if we could hone in on some of the Bigfoot vibes a little easier and not have to hike through the woods just randomly looking and seeing if we stumble upon it. So, we use some of the remote viewing, what I call geographic remote viewing, which is different than controlled remote viewing. I call it geographic remote viewing because I'm looking at satellite imagery and I'm actually able to identify actual GPS coordinates and locations and identify what's going on there. So it's a lot more specific of locating specific areas than controlled remote viewing is more trying to see a random thing that you're not really sure what it is, where I'm actually specifically looking for information about a specific geographic location with the geographic remote viewing. And that's been really, really awesome tool for us. In addition to that, I'm a Reiki master teacher, so I feel energy on a physical level, different energy frequencies at different levels. And so I'll hone in on what I would call the Bigfoot energy frequency and be aware of that. When that's happening, I'm not driving the car because it's not safe to have your awareness that open and be in charge of a moving vehicle at the same time. So somebody else has to be driving if we're doing that as a drive-by. And that's actually helped where one time we were 55 miles an hour down the road and I screamed, "Stop the car! Go back. There's something in that woods back there." And we turned around and went back there and found a way to get in there, and back behind the woods was a gravel pit, and sure enough there were fresh footprints going straight up the hill, and
Wow.
and they were awesome. So 55 miles an hour, we can pick it up.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Because people do have these senses and stuff. They can feel sort of things. Sometimes even out there, we sometimes an area just feels right, or it feels like it has something good about it, and every once in a while it does yield results, even without being so attuned and practicing like you guys are, obviously, in more advanced stuff. But yeah, it's very interesting, and it's piqued our interest, of course. So we're definitely going to utilize it. And yeah, you can straight up do that remote viewing from GPS coordinates and stuff. And explain us, how does that happen, and what do you exactly see about the areas that you're viewing?
Well, it depends on what I'm looking at. Now, I started doing this for paranormal research teams. And so in those instances, I was looking at haunted locations they were going to go investigate. And normally it was homes or some type of building that somebody was asking for help with because they were having a haunting. And they would give me the location and I would look at it on Google satellite imagery or Google Earth. I kind of switch between the two. Um, and I just start looking at the images and I zoom in and out and I ask questions. And what I see on the image changes in reaction to my question. So then I ask another question and another question. And it's kind of like a conversation of what I'm seeing. And then I just keep asking questions about that to narrow it down to see what it is that I'm looking at. I found out in doing that the very first time I did that for this paranormal investigations team, I had not tried to do that for that before. And so I said, oh, sure, I'll give it a try. And so it was quite interesting because the first thing that I saw was this spirit bear looking at itself, and it didn't want to be there anymore. It was sad. And then I said, and I see three Indians staring at the bear. They're staring at the bear all the time. And I said, the one's wearing feathers, a chief headdress on his head, and the next one's wearing a wolf pelt on his head, and the one next to him is wearing bison fur with horns. And they're all just staring at this bear. And then I saw a hunter running towards me and he was yelling and I couldn't hear what he was saying, but he was yelling about something that they should never have done. And then I saw a human dead body in that house. And I said, okay, so someone's cremated. Those are the remains. Nope. Okay, somebody was buried under the house. No. Somebody's buried in the house. No. They're not buried. And it's not a cremation. They're not buried. They didn't kill this person, but they know it's there. And I was like, that's not even possible. That can't even be true. And I kept asking the questions. It's a cremation, though, right? And and no, and I kept asking those questions, and it kept coming back with it was a dead body. They knew it was there. It was not buried, not cremated. I was like, what? No way. That's not. But it just kept coming back that way, so I wrote it down. And then I saw these weird looking spirits in the house that I had never seen before, and they weren't like human spirits at all. And I was like, what is that? What is that? What is that? And I was trying to identify what it was, and I kept seeing it from like a different angle and seeing different versions, and they just had this wild looking hair. And then I realized that those were like sticks, like crazy looking sticks. And I'm like, are those tree spirits? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, okay, tree spirits in the house? That's weird. And they were just really, really mad at these people. And so I wrote that down and I gave it to this team leader of this team. And he kind of went, oh, okay, Jen. I said, he goes, maybe you're not good at this. I said, maybe I'm not. I said, I don't know, but that's what I kept getting. And I that just can't possibly be true that there's a dead body in the house. I know that can't be true, but that's what I kept getting. So then he calls me after he goes there, right? And he says, Jen, you're never gonna believe this. I'm like, what? He goes, I walk into this house. The first thing I see is this giant stuffed black bear. It's like a real black bear stuffed. The first thing I saw, he said, and across from it on the wall is hanging these three Indian masks with the feathers and then the wolf pelt on its head and then the bison fur with the horns. They're all in a row and there's like staring at the bear. I'm like, okay. He goes, and get this. I go into the basement and it's filled with all these dead, mutilated animals. He said, this guy is an amateur taxidermist. He's trying to learn how to do it. So he goes out and kills animals and he's just trying to figure it out. And they're just mutilated. It's horrible. It's absolutely disgusting. It's filled with all these dead animals that are just mutilated. I was like, oh, that's the hunter that's yelling about
Oh,
something he should not have done. And then he says, get this. They've got a human dead body in their house. I said, no way. How? And he said,
wow.
they purchased a mummy from a museum that went out of business. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's wow. Okay. And he said, and they said they never had anything happen. Nothing paranormal happened in all the years that they lived there until one day the tree in the front yard fell down and then all hell broke loose in the house.
Wow,
Isn't that?
that's incredible. It makes you think, that this world is a lot bigger than we imagine it to be. We just don't know
Yeah.
what's out there.
Yeah. So that was my first time in using it for that purpose. And then the more I did it, the more I became very confident in what I see is there. What I see is there. And that just happened time after time after time. So when we decided to go look for Bigfoot and I've used it for looking for missing people too. And it helped with that as well. So when we started to do Bigfooting and I started to use remote viewing for that, I remote viewed this location on my reservation. I'm a tribal member of the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians in northern Minnesota. And so we were going to go up there and do some Sasquatching, Bigfooting up there. And I had remote viewed this particular woods and found a location where I was seeing this giant Bigfoot face. And I was realizing that the location that I'm seeing this giant face is like its territory. It was quite a large area, but it was a scary looking Bigfoot. I felt kind of afraid of it. I'm like, aggressive male. I'm kind of scared of that guy. Not sure how I feel about that. And then about 200 feet away from the edge of that territory, there was an area that was lighting up in reaction to me asking if there was any Bigfoot evidence that we could collect here. This whole area lit up. And so I marked that. And then between those two places, about halfway between them, it looked like there was a trail of some kind. And I'm like, I wonder if we could drive on that because it wasn't like a marked road or anything like that. You could just see that there was a trail there. And I'm like, I wonder if we can drive on that. And so we went up there and we drove it. Was it drivable, Jenna? You're mute.
I know, but all you can read my mouth lips. You read my lips when I go, no. Oh, funny. No, it really wasn't. And there was logs in the middle of this road. I mean, that's how bad it was. And her vehicle barely fit. So literally, if my head was her vehicle, these are the trees. Like all the way back. I mean, it was bad.
We drove it.
And then
That's awesome.
she'd say, Jenna, go, I'll drive. You go get the log. I was like, fine. And so I complained, but I go get the doggone log. One of the logs actually took two of us to move, remember?
Time. That was a different time because Nikki was driving on that one. She
was
driving
that's
my
right.
truck. Yeah. But that was when we were out at the labyrinth area that I was driving and you had to move the log by yourself.
I tell you what, that's getting it done. It's getting out in some of those areas that no one else has been in a while. It's
right?
awesome.
Well, and that's exactly it. It's so fun to have to move a log to get somewhere that that log has been sitting there for a while,
Exactly.
Well, these aren't really roads. They are like man-made trails that were made by the local natives to get back into the woods to collect the downed trees for firewood. And so they're maybe using their four-wheelers or whatever, or maybe they're really old trucks. But yeah, if you know those old car washes where the rags come up over your car, it was kind of like that for a while with the trees.
Yeah. Just like that.
That's great though. I mean,
yeah. So Nikki was driving my truck and we're driving and I'm navigating her on this road and I've got my phone open to the GPS satellite image and I've got service up there. So that's if I can have service on my phone.
That's perfect. That's great.
Then I can remote view on the spot. Okay, if I have service, I can remote view on the spot. So I'm watching us going up this road, this little trail as we're the blue dot traveling. And now I'm like, okay, we're almost there. Stop. over there. And so she parked right there. And I said, okay, girls, if we get out of the car and go to the right, immediately to the right, about 100 feet in, we're going to be entering that aggressive male's territory. If we get out of the car and go to the left, within 100 feet, we're going to come across the Bigfoot evidence that we can collect, whatever that is. And so we get out of the car, and Jenna wasn't ready.
Hey, learning curves. That's all I have to say. There's a lot of learning curves.
Hey, here's Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Hi, Jen.
And Jenna.
And Jenna.
Golly, I sure feel like a bunch of rotten meat or whatever that saying is.
I didn't get to meet Jenna last time.
You didn't?
Nope.
Well, then,
Shut us up.
nice
Yeah,
meeting you.
prior-
Oh, yeah,
prior
that's right. Yeah, the
Nice to meet you
She-Scotchers
too.
were on
yeah,
Josh's podcast, the Hide and Seek Archives.
Josh and I interviewed Jen all alone. Jen did all the talking too.
I usually do that.
She is amazing. She's an amazing speaker. Why wouldn't anybody just want to sit and listen? I mean, she's got great stories and she's got a great way of telling them. So I'm like, I don't mind listening.
She sends me messages sometimes during interview. You're doing great. Keep going.
Yeah, keep it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys speak at some conferences too. Didn't you go to a conference this last month?
Yeah, we were at that Nebraska Bigfoot conference. Or I was there. I took
Yeah,
Tammy along.
yeah.
Jenna wasn't able to come along to that one, but I took Tammy.
No.
And as long as you have at least two of us, you've got us. So
That's right.
yeah.
That's what she always says. As long as there's two of us, you've got us. And because totally, I mean, it is three of us. So, but
But you need one of us isn't the Squatchers. You need at least two.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, with all you guys' Bigfoot experiences and all the stuff you've done, going into the woods now, what's your thoughts on Bigfoot, what they are and stuff? Has anything changed from when you guys first got started?
When I first started, I didn't believe in Bigfoot. I didn't
It's a
believe.
huge change.
Yeah.
I believe in Bigfoot now. I absolutely believe in Bigfoot now. And once I had an experience, we
That's
were
what
kind of
happens.
getting surrounded, and the girls that I was with were scared, and we couldn't see them because we didn't have strong enough night vision equipment. Because I had a bunch of paranormal investigators with us, and their cameras were made for haunted houses, lighting up haunted houses, not the woods.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't see what was coming. We could hear they were coming, and we were getting surrounded, but we couldn't see them. And so one of the girls said, hey, Jen, do your tobacco thing. And we were on an Ojibwe reservation, and I do speak some Ojibwe. And so I did a formal prayer with tobacco in my hand and introduced myself very formally. And, I thanked the little people of the forest, and then I thanked Bigfoot. And it's in the Ojibwe language. And as soon as I thanked Bigfoot, everything just went silent. They stopped moving towards us. They didn't retreat. Everything just went silent. And they just stopped. And I was like, yes. Because I had heard from the tribal elders that you could pray to Bigfoot and they would listen and they would help you. And, I believe the things that they tell me. I respect and honor the things that they tell me. But I still have this logical, skeptical mind, and I need to kind of experience something and see evidence of that to fully grasp it. And
Right.
so, yeah. So I thanked Bigfoot, and then it stopped. And so I was like, yes, it reacted to my prayer. And
No, it's
Yes.
fascinating.
yeah.
And did anything else happen that night, or everything just stopped and everything was cool?
Well, then we were just standing there, and the girls, they didn't really understand what I had said because I spoke strictly in Ojibwe. They don't they didn't understand. So they weren't excited like I was. They were still scared. So they're just like, hey, maybe we should go check out those footprints that we found earlier today. We'll go to that spot, okay? I'm like, okay. So we jumped in the car and drove away. And a lot of the girls didn't want to get out of the car after that. They weren't sure that they wanted to look for Bigfoot anymore. It was way scarier than paranormal investigations or Bigfoot flying off the wall.
I
and-
mean, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. One said, hey, maybe Bigfoot could just step out in front of the car and we could take his picture, and that would be good. I'm like, yeah, let's see if we can arrange that.
Yeah, who do we talk to about that?
So,
Jen, have you taught Jenna any of the tribal language? Can Jenna speak any of it out there, or does
I try. If she tells me on the spot, I'll be able to say it, but memory-wise, it's shot. It's shot. So yes, I can even use the correct dialect if she just says it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm not well versed.
greeting. You don't know the greeting? The greeting.
Shinabwe, or say it one more time.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Oh yes, bonjour.
Bonjour, Anin is hello. Hello, it's a welcome, and then Anin is more like a hi friend.
So bonjour, Onin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I can do anything.
You can say thank you. You can say thank you, right? Remember how
Yeah.
to say thank you?
Mm-mm.
Miigwech.
Miigwech. Miigwech. I love that word. I love that word. What's the one? The water. What's water?
Wabu.
Wabum?
Wabu.
Okay. Whenever we go over rivers, I know you say something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No. But anyway, if you're asking me what I think Bigfoot is, to change the subject, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, at first, when I was on the team, I did not believe. I was like, sorry, forget it. Because before that, I'd never really given it a thought. I thought about different cryptids like chupacabra, but I knew what Bigfoot was, but never really gave it any thought if it was real. And bada bang, joined the team. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we find these footprints, and I'm thinking, okay, this is really odd, but prove it, kind of thing. I'm very much a skeptic, and it didn't sink in until we actually found a handprint, which was of sand. It smelled very fishy, and it was on a log. It was very fresh, and that in itself had me explicitly. I can't even say the word. I was so excited because at that point I had a thought that, oh my gosh, these may be really real. And that was the first time that I thought, I mean, even though we had found so many other things, that was actually the first time I thought they were real. So what I think they're flesh and blood. I also think they're very similar to Native Americans in being tribal, like they have their own tribes or their own groups. And I think that's how they travel. And that's what I think about Bigfoot, what Bigfoot is, I guess.
That's a great answer.
And I don't, and I honestly can't say that I know if there would be any other abilities. I mean, look at us, human beings. We're able to do so much with our minds. And Jen always talks about how much we use our minds compared to how much we actually have. But I just think that they're capable of anything, but prove it. I want to see it. You know what I mean?
That is the hardest part. I think, yeah, they're obviously, from my experience of, I think a native elder tribe or some sort. They definitely understand the native language because I've used it and it's had results, just like the story you just told, Jen. They might even possibly know English, but they're smart enough to know all of that and understand that. So, is that their language that they're speaking, or is that another language would actually make them more intelligent to learn two languages and be able to be proficient enough to understand? So that tells me that they're more than an ape or animalistic. They have this higher thought pattern that they use. So
you think it's more animalistic instead of being an intelligent?
It is intelligent. It's not animalistic at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're. I think they're a tribe. There might be a tribe of people. I don't. We don't know. It's the hardest thing to gather evidence and observe than doing anything. I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah, very true. I wish it was easier. I wish we could just put our hearts out there and their hearts would go bing and everything would be beautiful. But I know that's not true. Ignorance is bliss, but sometimes I want to live there.
Yeah. So, Jen, what do you, without revealing too much, what does the elders say about them? Are they an elder tribe? Are they able to teach us anything? Are they to be stayed away from?
Well, okay, so Bigfoot represents honesty in the seven sacred teachings of the
Yes, it
grandfather.
does. Yes.
And for people who don't know what that is, there are seven sacred teachings of the grandfathers, and like love is represented by the eagle, and each one is represented by an animal that they know and can observe and know things about. And it's interesting that they chose Bigfoot to represent honesty because he lived the most honest life. And they talk about Bigfoot as being our elder brother. He's looking out for us. He's here to help us show us the way to live an honest, natural life that lives in harmony with the earth and all the things around us. So they say that sometimes if you see Bigfoot, that there is a spiritual meaning behind that. Well, they believe that when you see any animal, there's a spiritual meaning. It's a messenger that you saw it. I mean, there could be an eagle flying over your house and you wouldn't see it, but if you see it flying over your house, then it's a message for you. So if you don't see it, then it's not.
Right. Right.
Your neighbor's not going to say, "Hey, there was an eagle over your house at 2." You know, you have to see it.
No, but
So, so a lot of people on our reservation don't report Bigfoot sightings because they think it's a personal message, spiritual message to them that they saw it. So they might go talk to their spiritual advisor to have them try to interpret what that meaning was to them in that moment, in that day. So that's why a lot of Bigfoot sightings that go unreported on reservations is because they just don't see it as something to report to Bigfoot researchers.
yeah, exactly. And I find it fascinating that honesty is represented by Bigfoot, and even now in modern days, everyone doesn't believe us and stuff, and that honesty is kind of a part of this subject, because you have to be honest about what you're reporting and hoaxing, and people don't even believe you, the regular crowd. Um, and it's fascinating that they do say that it's an older brother, and it could, it has a meaning and stuff. And I always wonder about some of these prophecies that the natives tell about seeking, elders and stuff, and them teaching you when there's not really many elder natives except for on reservations. So, what do
Talking
you?
about the seven fire prophecies,
Yes, yes.
are you part of Ojibwe?
No, I have some Padawanami in me.
Well,
It's a Michigan
Potawatomi and
trip.
Ojibwe are
Yeah,
related.
they're
They're
the three
yeah, the three brothers.
the three council of fire.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
um,
talking a little bit about that prophecy and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on some of that?
prophecies, it's interesting because it depends on where you gather the information from. Some of it is very vague and some of it is very detailed. And if you talk to elders who will actually talk to you about it, it gets really interesting.
Oh yeah,
um,
always been.
so the seven fire prophecies were given by the seven prophets who walked out of the great salt water on the east coast about 2,000 years ago ish. Is this sounding familiar to you? It's weird that I can't see your face. um why can't I see your face?
I'm
um
messaging people and stuff. I don't want to be looking at my phone on the screen. Sorry.
Thank you, Chad. Okay, so so the seven prophets walked out of the great saltwater on the east coast, which would have been like southern Canada and northern America at that time, which wasn't either at that time, but just kind of a general location of where the people were living, and they were given seven prophecies by the seven prophets, and so the prophecies were when one thing they would say, this is what's going to happen. And when that happens, that, with the first thing, when that happens, then it's the light, the first fire has been lit. And then here's your instructions on what to do when that happens. And so that's how each set was given, right? And so I don't know them off the top of my head in order of what they were, but some of them
Right.
were, there are strangers coming with pale faces and they will wear the face of a friend and a
Yes.
brother, but be careful because some of them will be wearing a mask hiding death. Okay. And you have to do everything in your power to make sure that the original Anishinaabe and the wolves of the land of the people survive, that some of them survive, because they will be hunted to the point of extinction. Both will be hunted for their hair to the point of extinction. So you have to do everything in your power to make sure that some of the wolves and some of the original Anishinaabe remain, that they survive. And so then that's one of them. And so another of the prophecies was when this particular thing happens, then you're supposed to leave this place and go this way. And they gave like directions. And then you
Yes, they
follow
did.
the Majishel. You follow the Majishel, which when I read that the first time, I was like, I know what a Majishel is. I have some. And, they actually come from the ocean. So for them to be up around the Great Lakes is odd. And so I'm imagining that they were left in places, and so you just follow them like breadcrumbs. That's what I was imagining as I'm reading about it. But that's not actually true. And I started talking to elders. I showed an elder this bracelet that my great grandfather had made for me out of Magie shells, and I said, my great grandfather left this for me, and they were larger than what I had thought were Magie shells. They were larger, like that big, and they were brown speckled. Magie shells are generally little and white, right? And do you know what Magie shells are?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
If I've seen them, then I could tell. Yeah, I've seen them, but
So
not
they
by the
used them a
name.
lot. They used them a lot in the Middaywin ceremonies, like the medicine people, the Middaywin. They would. It's really interesting. They store medicine, blow medicine into Magie shells, and pass it.
Okay.
That's kind of secret stuff. But anyway, the Magie shell. So I had this bracelet, and I showed it to an elder, and he said, "Oh, that's the shells that we're waiting for." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Those are the Magie shell that we're waiting for." And I'm like, Magie shells are white and smaller, aren't they? And he says, "Oh, they're like this too. That looks like the one that we're waiting for to come back." And I'm like, "Please explain what you're talking about." And he says, "The 7 fire prophecies." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's the Magie shell that we follow. When it's time to leave, we follow it. It shows up and we follow it." And I'm like, "What?" That's not how I imagined it when I read the prophecies, right? And he said, "No." He says, "The Magie shell rises up in the water." I'm like, "If this little shell rose up in the water, nobody's going to notice that. Are you talking about something bigger?" He's like, "Yes." And he says, "It's very large, but it looks like that shell, that spotted brown shell." And I'm like, "Okay, so it rises up in the water and we follow it." He said, "Yeah." And that's how we came to Minnesota. We followed the Magie shell to Minnesota along it was in the water and we followed it. And I was like, "Okay, so are you talking real like a ship?" He said,
Right.
"Yeah,
No.
like
Yes.
an alien ship." An alien ship, but it looks like the spotted Magie shell on the outside. But he says it rises up out of the water, and then we follow it. And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, that's how they were guided to Michigan and stuff. And there's other legends of a different tribe of people, a race of some other things that they had to go to war with in Michigan to fight, and eventually, they say that their spirits roam the stone monuments that they left behind to the day. So, do you, not to digress, but do you have any stories of like that from that prophecy? Because it seemed like the Algonquin tribe followed this thing to the Great Lakes region and
And they
sailed all the way to Minnesota and everywhere in between.
And they were to go to the place where food grew on top of water. And they said food doesn't grow on top of water. And they said it does. You need to find a place where it grows on top of water. And when you find it, you stay there and you never leave, ever. Don't ever leave there. And so when they were following the Jishel and they came up around the top of the Great Lakes, the Algonquin tribe, the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, the people,
Yes, the people.
the people, they settled all along the top of the Great Lakes and down around the side in Minnesota, a little bit of North Dakota, Michigan, Wisconsin. It's the largest of all Native American tribes. It's the largest tribe, right? Did you know that?
Yes.
Largest tribe. Ta-da! And so they found where food grows on top of water. It's wild rice grows on top of water, and so they found that place, and they're never supposed to leave there. So when all the things happened with the whites coming and settling, and they made friends. The Ojibwe in Minnesota made friends. They were friends with the people that came here, and a lot of people don't understand that the government didn't really mess with the Ojibwe people very much until the end, because they were afraid that the settlers would war against the government if they messed with them. Did you know that?
Did not know that. No.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. They were one of the last to be put on reservations because of that. So, so they were really, really afraid of that, and they actually brought in 2 tribes from Canada, and they mixed them onto our reservations. They mixed them together because the people from our reservation wouldn't sign the treaty, and so they mixed all these other ones in and made them sign the treaty. And they called them all the same. And the settlers didn't know that they were being moved and that the Indians were gone, that some of them that they knew were gone, because there were still Indians there. So yeah, so a lot of the originals were not anymore. So that's a really sad story.
There's some pockets. I don't know about Minnesota, but in Michigan there's very small tribes who got treaties to stay in the state when the Trail of Tears and Reservation Acts and stuff were enacted. So,
So they said that so the 7th fire prophecy says that when the wolves begin to repopulate the land of the people, the original Anishinaabe will return. And the descendants of the original Anishinaabe will return, and they will learn of the old ways of the people and how to live in peace and harmony with the earth and everything. And then they will go, so they'll come back, they'll learn the old ways of living in harmony with the earth, and then they'll go out and teach everyone everywhere how to live in harmony with the earth. And if they are successful, then the 8th and final fire will be lit. And that's kind of described as peace on earth type of thing, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if it's not lit, then it's the apocalypse kind of thing that happens.
Yeah. So basically, the original Anishinaabe, the descendants of the original Anishinaabe, are supposed to teach everyone everywhere how to live in harmony with each other. And if we're successful, then the 8th fire will be lit, which will be wonderful, right? And so right now, we are in the time of the 7th fire. And so you will see for years now, people who look like me and who look like you are going to the reservations and trying to talk to the elders because they feel called. They feel called to go back and learn these things. It's like this internal calling. And they're just, I went and talked to my family who lives on the western border of our reservation, where there aren't very many people. And they were saying, you should see, there was all these cars coming in and turning and going up Ray Road, which is named after my grandfather. And they're going up into the woods up there, and they heard drums up there. So we drove out there, and we're like, what are you doing? And there's all these people there from license plates all over the place, and they're learning and they're singing, and they're just meeting in random places on the reservation, and they're from all over, and they're people who are mixed bloods who don't really look native. And they're coming back to learn the old ways again. Isn't that cool?
It's very fascinating, yeah, and something I'm kind of guilty of too, actually, I guess. And it plays a role in the Sasquatch thing because it's I don't know, it's all related and stuff. Like I said, if they're an element to some of this stuff, but there are other entities out there, such as Dogman. I don't know if you can reveal too much, but here in Michigan, we definitely have them. I've personally seen one cross the road. It wasn't. It was basically just a wolf that was crossing the road. Everything looked exactly like a wolf till it stood up and ran like a person. And I theorizing, what it is the Dogman is it these werewolf things? Is it a Native American shamanistic practice? Maybe not skinwalker type stuff, but the other side of that coin. What's your take on some of these entities and stuff like Dogman?
I haven't actually seen a dog man, nor am I actually looking for them because I hear that they're a little more aggressive. And I guess I'm looking for a friendly but in a way, I think that anything's going to be if you're coming at it in a good way, I think that animals in general know your intention. But if they are something more on a spiritual aspect of like a medicine man or they call themselves spiritual advisors and they don't call themselves medicine men, who's trying to shift into a wolf. In the southern tribes they may call that a skinwalker, but I think that in general the spiritual advisors do attempt to shift. That's some of the things that they do try to do. And they would do that with like wearing wolf pelts, and they would try, to shift. And
Right,
I've
right.
heard people even tell me how to blend my energy with a tree so I could disappear into the background of the tree. By blending your energy with the tree, you'll look like part of the tree, and people will walk right past you. I've been told that many times. I've tried it, but nobody came by. So
Right. Jenna, what's your take on some of these entities like Dogman?
Jen had the perfect answer for that. I don't know how I can say anything more. She just said, what did you say? The very beginning, you said 2 seconds. Not
looking for Dogman.
Yes, I'm not looking for Dogman. That's perfect.
You come to Michigan, you might be come across them.
And that's, in all honesty, whatever we come across, we're going to approach in a very, very scientific way. We're going to be using the best intentions. We're going to be doing everything by the book if we can, so whatever we find, it's the same thing I always say. Oh yeah, prove it. Let me see it.
Exactly.
Let me see it.
Yeah, and from my experience, like I'll talk about it a little bit more. Is I had a dream and it came true, and the dream was I basically told some of the members, and the setting was exactly the same. They were wearing the same clothes and almost sitting in the exact same spot over the fire. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering how long after the dream it came true. I know I've got a certain amount of time. That's me too. I'm 2 days too. Weird.
2 or 3 weeks. It was
Oh,
like 2.5
I thought
weeks.
2 days.
No. Sorry.
Oh, mine is 2 days. Sorry.
It took about 2 weeks. And basically, yeah, it came true, and it was a little freaky. And that spot was of Native American, a lot of Native American stuff in there, and so it's always made me wonder if it was Native American stuff. I also, when you're hunting and stuff, you don't kill certain animals. Sometimes they, supposedly come back and do something. I haven't took shots on some coyotes and other things before. I chose not to shoot them and stuff. So I've always wondered if stuff like that plays a role, if it's like spiritual stuff.
I was taught that you don't shoot or kill anything, well, unless it's coming to harm you. Like if there's a rabid animal, then of course shoot it. But if for hunting purposes, you never kill anything unless you're going to eat it and use all of it that you can.
Yes.
And then they also said you don't hunt predators ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like eagles, wolves, coyotes. Those are things you do not hunt in mountain lions.
No.
And I
Sorry. Go ahead.
carrion birds like like the turkey vultures, things that eat other things. You don't kill and eat those ever. And that's what
Right.
that was what I was taught by the native elders. Sometimes you can ask why, but they don't really give you a really good answer that you understand. They sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's kind of like old Indian guy talk, what I called old Indian guy talk. It's kind of like a riddle. You don't really
The
know.
riddle. Yes. The riddle.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Jenna,
Mhm.
now when I said 2 days, my dreams that come true or my deja vu is always 2 days. Now sometimes I have things that I know right before they're going to happen. I can't
Yeah.
control when it
Like
happens.
just yep.
But deja vu is always 2 days. It always has been. If I have a dream, sometimes I'm worried about the dream. I'm thinking about 2 days
2
from that
days.
dream. Is this going to happen? And
Yeah. Isn't it funny how too you can dream about something? Whenever I dream about tornadoes, that's actually situations in life that are going to be coming up, and however big the tornado is and how much damage it makes and creates is how big of a situation that is. So it's really interesting how we make our own dictionary kind of a thing, encyclopedia for ourselves.
and everybody doesn't have tornado dreams. I have them
No.
all the time. And I guess I was told by it means there's turmoil. You're either currently going through turmoil or you're feeling like you're going to. And it's always like I'm hiding from the tornado. When the
Oh,
tornado comes, I have them like not every day, but
start looking at the tornadoes in a different way. They're there to tell you something.
Well, okay, Jenna, remember what I told you that everybody has their own psychic vocabulary?
Yes.
That's what it means to him, and it's correct.
Oh, yes, that's right. I'm sorry. You're right, Jen. I'm sorry.
Because
I always like to tell people other ways of looking at it too, though, because I would hate someone to fear something that could be so beautiful and wonderful.
right.
But you're right. You're
When
right.
I have dreamt of tornadoes, it was turmoil. That I was feeling inner turmoil, that I was torn between two things. Usually, like I love this person, and yet I just want to strangle them. And I'm really upset that this person is doing this to their children, or they're doing this which is affecting their children. But yet I love this person, and I know that they're just feeling lost right now. So that's the kind of turmoil that I would see a tornado in the
Well,
dream.
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
I was feeling turmoil inside myself between my emotions about something. So, that's what it meant for me when I was seeing tornadoes. And then,
Yes, sorry, Chad. I didn't mean to say
no,
you're
you're
wrong.
okay. No, I'm not wrong. Or you're not wrong. I mean, like Jen said, it's to each interpretation, and it means something specific to each person.
Mm-hmm.
Like occasionally, I'll have a dream, and I know I'm dreaming with aliens attacking and the U.S. Air Force with them. And
Oh,
sometimes
wow.
with that dream, and I'm scared of it. Sometimes I have the dream, I know it's a dream, and they can't harm me, and you just know it. And who knows what that means?
Being able to control yourself in your dreams, knowing you're in a dream, yeah, that's something happens a lot. It's I don't know. I can do that and stuff most of the time. I don't know for other people, but I mean, I've actually woken myself up from dreaming before too, which is kind of scary in itself because you actually feel yourself breathing and you consciously know you're breathing and stuff. But you kind of get scared because it's almost like if you stop breathing, you're gonna die or something. But super weird sensation and stuff. And I don't know what all that means and stuff. I think a lot of people think that whole dreaming and stuff is your psychic abilities and your subconscious and
I think
a lot
sometimes
of
it
things.
is. I think sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just us processing our information inside ourselves. But I used to have precognitive dreams, and I would know that they were precognitive if I had them 3 times, the same dream 3 times. And so then once I have the same dream 3 times, I'm like, something's up. This is a precog. And there isn't a set amount of time for me. There isn't a set amount of time. But that's how I found my first missing person, was I was dreaming about it. And I was flying in the air over the river, And then I dove down into the river in this one spot, and I was trying to get down to the thing that sunk so I could drive it back up, but I could never get down to it. And I'd wake up and go, that's so dumb. You can't get down and drive something back up after it sinks. That's so dumb. But I kept having that dream. And after the third time I had that dream, and it was a very specific spot in the river, and I knew exactly where it was, then I started investigating to see, was there something in the river there? And that's where they found a girl in her car. She had a seizure and drove into the river and died in her car. And she had been missing for like a year and a half. So, so there wasn't like a time limit on that. It was just like information that's where she was. But other things that I have, I knew about coronavirus. In January, I was talking about there's virus coming. It's hard to breathe. You can't breathe. Lots of people are going to die. I talked about getting toilet paper and masks and medicine, right, Jenna? Stock up on foods that that you can keep at home for a long time, and and so her and I and some of other friends and my mom, we were all stocked up in early January.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
Being prepared and stuff. That's just a smart thing to do, regardless of what's going on and everything.
The dreams that I was having, I was dying from it. I couldn't breathe, and I knew that a lot of people were dying, and I just had this peaceful awareness that I wasn't going to make it, and I was going to be one of the ones who died. And if I didn't, now what the others tell me is that we have those dreams to tell us what's coming, and then that helps us to take a different path. So when we have a scary dream about something that's coming, it's not just to scare the crap out of us or to give up because it's the end. It's to help us direct ourselves in a different path so that we can avoid the worst path. Okay, so in those dreams, it was take it seriously, Jen, because if you catch this, you're dead, and I was ready for it when it happened. I was very careful. Wasn't I, Jenna? I was very careful. And because I was very careful and very adamant about it, Jenna was very careful.
Yes, I was very careful. I'm somewhat of a germaphobe. I'm not totally terrible about it, but I'm somewhat. And Jen helped me with that. I'm not bad.
Yeah, and again, it's giving you a warning to become prepared and stuff, or change course. Being prepared and stuff. It's the whole thing, and it happens and stuff. I've had deja vu things that have happened and stuff that's come true, and it's weird. And sometimes you can control it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you understand, and sometimes it could take a while for you to realize what happened.
Sometimes it doesn't happen for 6 months, and then all of a sudden, boom, it starts happening again.
That's true. Sometimes it does come in bursts.
What do you think about some of these other entities and stuff? I've encountered what they call the stick man, which was a humanoid, goblinoid creature.
What was your encounter?
Basically, it was here in Michigan, and took my friend out going bigfooting without telling him we were going bigfooting.
Oh no!
So we're in the front yard a little bit, but when we got in the backyard towards the barn, we were gonna head to the cow pasture. And we crossed this wired fence, and there was this downed tree with the trunk broken off right about here, and something didn't really look right about it. And basically seeing a humanoid bald head looking and peak go down. And so, we're smacking each other and saying, what's that? Look at that. And it kind of tree peaks at us, and I could see it. It's completely bald and skinny. Had a tint of yellowish eyes. It wasn't like glowing eyes, and it was yellow. I would say dull, brownish yellow. But it tree peaked several times, revealing its arm that was super long and skinny. I think at the time, being a teenager, I called it, a crackhead skinny. It was a stick man skinny.
Sorry.
I did, and to the point where if I had to fight it, I could break its arm over my knee like a stick. It was, the whole arm seemed like the size of my wrist.
Wow.
Very, very abnormal. If you ever seen Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, Gollum.
Yes.
So it's after the ring. It looked like that, except for about 7 foot tall. So,
wow.
my friend was freaking out, and we go inside, tell my dad. Of course, he doesn't believe us. He comes out, and long story short, he lied about encountering it. He did have an encounter. He lied about it, and several years later, he told us the real story. It did the same thing, peeked at him until it really revealed itself and see his leg. And he said, he calls it like a gray alien type of a creature. It's a tall type of thing. It's humanoid. In the research that I've done, of course, over the years, there's been only a few videos that had the same creature, and I've always wondered what it exactly was. I just call it the stick man. Is it the rake? What people report, it looks exactly like it without the paranormal powers. Is it a Wendigo? Is it a ghoul of some sort? Or is it just another spirit? What's your take on it, Jen? Is there any Native American entities out there? I know there's different things like water panthers and different entities that live in caves and spirits and sorts.
Water panthers. Oh my gosh, I had a vision of those actually. I did have, and I didn't know what they were at the time. That's an interesting story. But I don't know anything. I don't know anything directly about the stickman. I know what you're talking about. I've seen information on them, but I haven't seen one myself. I've seen little people, different kinds of little people. I've seen the Chihotanas. I've seen the Chihotanas, which are the little people that are like 2 to 3 feet tall that look like little Bigfoots, but they're full grown at 2 to 3 feet tall. And the Dakota call them the Chihotanas, and they're the little people of the woody trees or the woodland trees. So they say the Bigfoot is always near them, and I actually had seen one of those years before I ever started looking for Bigfoot. I had seen one. And I was planting some morel mushroom spawn in the backwoods of my property underneath an elm tree. And I had realized that I had dug out a lot of rock at the base of this tree, and I was loosening the soil at the base of this old tree. And I thought, there was a lot of rock on top of here. I'm not sure this is really good for the tree. So I stopped, and I'm like, I don't want to hurt the tree. So I was like asking the nature spirits in the forest to tell me if this was bad, that I was loosening more soil at the base of this tree, that I would stop, that please just let me know. And I would stop. So I waited and nothing happened. So I was like, all right, no answer is an answer. So I started, loosening the soil again to mix that mushroom spawn in it like the directions said. And all of a sudden, I saw out of my peripheral vision something drop down from the tree and growled in my ear.
Wow.
And it looked like, a little, monkey type thing. And it was a Chahotana. And I didn't know what they were. But, now that I know what Chahotanas are, that's what it was. And I just took that as the answer that, this isn't good for the tree. So I stopped. I said, thank you. That was the answer I needed. Thank you. I'll stop now. And, I was taught by my great uncle to always ask the forest, if you have questions, and it'll guide you. So.
Yeah. Again, it brings up the forest has a lot of spiritual energy about it. Natives have always said that. And you have these tales of these little people in Sasquatch, and even in Europe they have tales of fairies and gnomes and leprechauns and all these different creatures and stuff.
Here. Mm-hmm. We have gnomes here. There are gnomes here.
Indonesia.
We've heard a story on the last episode of a gnome in Ohio.
Jenna and I saw gnomes. We saw gnomes here.
Now, what do you think?
The living tar out of me.
What do you think? Are they like native to the land? Are they coming over from Europe? Now, what do you think's going on with all these creatures that keep popping up in America? I know they're in everywhere, but it seems like the U.S. is like a hotbed of a lot of entities popping up lately.
The stories are that the gnomes came over with the family of the farmers that they were with over across the ocean, that they came along with them, that they were helpers to those family of farmers. And so they just came over and continued doing what they did to help the farmers here. And what's interesting is that The first time that I saw a gnome, I was with Jenna, who is a farmer. And she's like, I see a gnome.
Oh no, I didn't say it like that. I was looking at it and it was staring, and all of a sudden I kept looking at it, and all of a sudden it went and looked at me, and I froze, and I went, I just saw it. I think I saw a gnome. That's how I said it, Jen.
That's perfect.
It was so scary. It was like, I'd never seen anything like that before. Who would have ever thought that I could actually see that? I saw it move. I know it was there. It freaked me out. To know that I could see something like that, I know there's so much more possibility. That was a okay, prove it moment.
Yeah, I mean, it opens the door for, God knows what's out there. Now, what does it look like? No, is it the white beard and the hat, and exactly what did it look like?
Just the same. It didn't have, well, I don't know what, I don't look at a lot of gnomes, but it did have the beard. It had a hat. I don't remember the colors because it's been so long. But it had the regular pants, just gnomish,
Wow.
I guess. Yeah. But like I said, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me when I was looking at it. Like I said, until it looked at me, and then it was like, oh. So yeah, it was. You don't even think about what it's wearing when it's moving.
Right. That's amazing. I hope I see one day. Actually, it's just being a kid, you research all this. And you're like, oh, that can't be real. How can gnomes be real? Then, you meet people and trustworthy people. And, I believe you guys for sure. And it's like, how much is really out there? Is it really a veil? Are they crossing? What's going on? Because it seems like people would start seeing these things every single day, a lot more, because they're so populated. It seems like.
Can I mention when I saw that gnome, we were sitting right next to the football prints, the big footprints up the sandhill. That's where we were. We were not very far away from it, and there it's at. So I don't know if areas or Bigfoot or certain entities group up, but happened to be.
And
can I bring up a topic?
Yeah.
Let's go back. When Blake was talking about the stick man and his dad finally admitted and described it, and the best way his dad was able to describe it was as like a gray alien. What do you guys, you gals, think about UFOs, aliens? Is there anything to do with this? Is there anything to do with Bigfoot or any of that? If you have an opinion or if you've had an experience.
I did a remote view for a guy in North Carolina. And he asked me if I would remote view this location for him, and I said sure. And he gave me GPS locations to this forest, and I started looking at it, and it had some waterways in it, and a lake, and roadways, and a field, and I'm looking at it, and the first thing that I saw was this Bigfoot going out into the field, and he was like calling for help, like calling up to the skies for help. And I was like, what's happening here? And then I saw, like, in the remote view, I saw like a UFO come down, right? And so he was calling for the UFO to come and help them. And I'm like, why do they want help? And then I got that they wanted to leave there and they needed assistance to leave. So they were asking for them to help them to move. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't really know this guy that I'm remote viewing for. I'm not sure I want to tell him that. But I wrote it down, like, I'm not sure I want to tell him that. I'm not sure I don't really know him. But then I just started seeing, like, the Bigfoots where they were, one was really not trying to hide by the waterway, and I saw where they were crossing the road because they lived here. And so I started doing screenshots and saying, they cross the road right here a lot because they actually live over here, but they're coming over the water here. And if you watch this spot right here by the water over on this side of the lake, there's one that's almost like jumping up and down on the water's edge. You can see him. If you watch that spot, you'll see him for sure. Like, watch it for a while from a distance, you'll see him. And then I did tell him, I said, there's this field over here, and I think if you watch that field, you're going to start to see some UFO action there because it feels to me like they're calling for help to move. They want to leave that area, and they can't. For whatever reason, they can't leave, and they need help to leave, and they want to leave. And he's like, oh my gosh, I was wondering about that because they're starting to build in that area. and they're really kind of boxed in. And he said, we have been seeing UFOs over that field. And that is where they crossed the
Wow.
road. He goes, and
Wow,
he sent
that's
me video from on the ground. He goes, they crossed the road right here. And that's exactly where I was saying they crossed the road right there. And so I think that there is a connection there. And, when you talk about aliens and UFOs, and you talk to the native elders who will actually talk to you about those kind of things, they talk about the UFOs and the aliens, the friends that come down and have little chats with them about whatever they need to talk about. And they're not afraid of them at all. It's like, oh, our friends are here. Let's go say hi. And it's not something that they're afraid of. They would be more afraid of like a black helicopter of the government flying over than they are of a UFO landing in their backyard. That kind of thing. It's very odd, to people
Yeah.
not living on the reservation, not living that lifestyle. You're like, that's weird. If the UFO was flying over my house and landed in my backyard, I'd be a little freaked out. Right?
We're kind of taught to believe that with the movies and culture and stuff, of course. But it's fascinating. Is it all related? Do you have any idea that it's all related? And
I do think that there is some connection, that the places where they are seems to be, they're concentrated in certain areas. And I can kind of tell those areas sometimes when I'm looking at them from above. Like, it's a weird thing. Sometimes I can tell, and like sometimes I did a remote view recently for the Ohio Night Stalkers on a new location that they were going to, and I started drawing on a screenshot, and I'm like, okay, here they're at the water here. If you can watch the water from over here and just watch, I think you'll see them at night. And then I like drew on the screenshot. I'm like, I called it their Bermuda Triangle. I said, there's going to be a lot of weird stuff happening in this spot right here, and it's weird that I can kind of see weird stuff is going to happen right here. And but I think that there's a lot of times that there is a connection to that kind of thing. I'm not exactly sure what all the connection is. Like, what is the connection between the lights and the Bigfoot? What is that connection? Because there is a connection. We know that there's a connection because people report seeing the lights.
Yeah, the
With the
orbs.
Bigfoots all the time. Yeah, not just an orb. Like, there's a difference between when paranormal investigators photograph a location and you see in the photograph something that looks like an orb. But I'm talking about something that is a light. Like, if you
Right.
plucked out a light from the green light off a traffic light, if you just plucked the bright light out of it, and it was bouncing around in the
It's
air,
big too. The ones
is what
we've
I'm
seen
talking
were
about.
at least this big. I mean, that would be the smallest it was. I mean, to volleyball size. We seen them in Bigfoot areas.
Mhm.
Uh,
And what color was
within
it?
5 minutes of having activity.
And what color was
The
it?
one I seen was a dark, grayish, foggy white.
The two I saw
Foggy white.
last year were both bluish white.
We've seen blue. One of our friends has a picture of a blue one in that area too.
So, I mean, so we're talking about something that is self-illuminating, that you can see with your naked eye, right? It doesn't take a camera to
During the
see it.
day. During the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely
And
seen
so
it. It was.
those
Go
lights
ahead.
are definitely, there is a connection between them and Bigfoot. I don't know what the connection is exactly, other than people report them. We've seen them. My tribe calls them water spirits. And are you familiar with water spirits? Yeah. So
There's.
Chad's not. I have photographs and video of water spirits, and they come in different colors. A lot of the time on this one particular reservation in Minnesota, on the Catholic reservation, there's an area called Bena, Minnesota, and the people, the local natives there they have a saying: when the green lights appear, Bigfoot is near, because they see the green lights and then pretty soon they see Bigfoot. And it's the same color green as the traffic light, the green in a traffic light. And so if you just pluck that out, that's what they're seeing. And when we were researching that area, I was out there with another girl, and she had her husband along, and we're like, it just doesn't feel right with him here. So we went off in the woods alone and had radio walkie-talkies to have him come pick us up if we needed him to come pick us up. But he was like a ways away, and it was dark, and he could kind of see where the location we were at through the woods if we turned our lights on or whatever. And for 35 minutes, he said that he watched this green light above the trees, like following us behind the trees. And
Wow.
we're like, did you take a video of it? He's like, you have all the cameras. He goes, didn't you see it? And we're like, no. And he's like, it followed you for like 35 minutes above the trees behind you. And I was like, oh, nice. And we were in a spot where Bigfoot sightings had been, and we were like within an eighth of a mile of the spot where we had the encounter, where rocks were thrown at us and we were getting surrounded, that kind of thing. And so we were being stalked by this green light for 35 minutes.
I don't know what explains it. I mean, it's the same area as Bigfoot. We know that, and there's a lot of water. I mean, Michigan has a lot of water. You can go, 4 miles, you're hitting a body of water in any direction. You're only, I think, 200 something miles from the Great Lakes at any point in Michigan. So there's water everywhere. What do you think?
50 foot from a mud puddle.
Yeah.
What's that?
We're mud. I mean, there's puddles everywhere. Lowlands that fill up like this time of year. They'll be dry in the summer, but just like looks like a flooded little pond, but it'll be gone in the summer, just in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, talk about like water spirits and water and Bigfoot. It does play a big role, and I believe that they personally live underground. Sometimes there's definitely pockets of channels they go to underground car systems, and some native legends have them of going underground into this other world. It seems like spiritually and physically. What's your take on where Sasquatch and some of these other entities live?
I think it depends on where you are and what is available to them. Like we're on my reservation in one of the areas that we go to, it's kind of a peninsula, and there aren't any. I just sent you a bunch of pictures, both of you, of water spirit in the water. I think that in that particular location, in the summertime, they may be living up in the trees. They make little dens on the ground. And then they also dig holes like dens into the ground. Because there actually were den-like structures that were found on the reservation that inside of them were literally holes dug down into a den, into an underground area. And so that has to be how they're staying warm in the winter, because up there it's like 50 below sometimes in the wintertime. And if they're not using fire, they have to stay warm somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But is migration what's going on?
But they're seen in the winter too there, so they're not. If they're migrating, they're not all going.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
So
they don't seem to migrate too much from Michigan. I mean, we have them. It seems to be just everywhere from where we've been to Florida. And they have them everywhere. Michigan has them pretty much everywhere. They're right outside of cities and people's backyards. But there's a lot of people that go into the woods, especially during hunt season, and it seems like they would have to go somewhere else completely to be avoided, because there's a lot of hunters and stuff that go into the woods.
But if they have dens that are underground, they don't have to.
Oh, I truly believe so, and even in the swamps, maybe going into like some quicksand type of holes that actually lead to cave systems. Because if you look up karst topography and karst systems, which is underground cave systems created by waterways and stuff, Michigan and other places around the Great Lakes are very highly rich in these areas of potential. And also our lakes and some of these swamps do actually drain into the earth. And several lakes have actually completely washed away within several hours, taking all the fish that have popped up dozens and dozens of miles away, in a swamp or some other lake.
So there's an underground underground tunnel like between the waterways.
Yes, that the water has gone through.
Huh.
So the Earth is like a rock, and there's water all outside of it, and the water goes through it and creates cave systems. So it could be a whole labyrinth underground.
That is
Like-
very true.
It's a pretty new science. Obviously there's not many exploration down there, so it's very, very new and fascinating. It could prove exactly where at least some of these entities go.
Mhm.
Uh,
I've always imagined that there were like underground tunnels between the lakes in Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. But I was on our little lake one day in a tiny little boat, and well, I shouldn't say tiny little boat. I was in the front of the boat when I was barefoot, and something hit the bottom of the boat and moved it, and it was like thud, and I was like, I felt that thud. I was like, what was that? That was a big something.
yeah,
So-
you never know.
Yeah.
Minnesota has 1,000. Yeah, land of 1,000. How much lakes do you actually have? I mean,
They say it's the land of 10,000 lakes, but there's more than that because there's ponds and unnamed lakes and swamp areas and bogs. I mean, we're full of water. Water everywhere.
exactly.
And back in the day, I know an airplane pilot who says, if you fly over Minnesota low enough, you can see how the lakes used to connect, because they've been drying up a little bit more, so then they become more separated, but they used to be more connected. And so that's how the Vikings drove up in here with their big ships.
They did.
lakes.
They have
Mhm.
found artifacts of Viking stuff in Minnesota, and I believe Roman swords and coins and Chinese stuff on the West Coast.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, the New World is not really such a new world. In fact, I believe it's the oldest world because it seems like that's where a lot of ancient stories, come from. We have native stories of the giants who built fortresses on like the Appalachian Mountains, and these red-haired, black-haired giants of the East Coast, West Coast, Grand Canyon. The mound builders, the copper mound builders in Michigan, who fueled some of the Bronze Age. What do you think those are? Do you think those were giants or a native tribe, like their official story tries to believe, or some other type of race entity?
I have thought about that quite a bit, and there's like the Serpent Mound in North Dakota it's called Hawk's Nest, North Dakota, and haven't been out there. It's not a tourist site, which I wish it would be, but there's a Serpent Mound up there, and when they talked to the local natives about the Serpent Mound, they said, "Well, it was here when we came here. We didn't build it." They said, "We know that it's a sacred place. We can feel that it's a sacred place." But it was here before we got here. So somebody else built it and they didn't know who. So, very, very ancient stuff, It's hard to say who exactly did it, I don't know who did it. Some people say that there was another race of people that were larger giants, that did those things. I guess that's possible.
Alien races. You never know.
But we had giants here too. I mean, they find giant skeletons in America. They have found many of them, and they're not Bigfoot skeletons. They're like giant human skeletons. Some of them have double rows of teeth and 6 fingers and toes, and those they weren't Bigfoot.
Doesn't that fit the Nephilim though? Isn't that how they were described in the Bible? The Nephilim, double rows of teeth, 6 digits on, and they were giant.
I'm not sure if they were described that way or not. I know that they were that there were giants in the earth in those days. I remember that stuff, but I guess I don't know exactly if they were described as having 6 fingers.
Yeah, take a look at that. That was found in a cave in Ohio by our last guest last night. Appears to have 6 digits. But the natives, describe these giants as having double rows of teeth with 6 digits on their hands, and they would. Here's another one. Greet, they would greet people by raising their hand. Right. Some of the stories from the Southwest where if you had 6 digits on your hand, they would, cut you down and stuff. This was out west too. And these giants, I've always thought, are they connected to Bigfoot? Are they a different entity, or were they an advanced civilization that it broke down and the people became wild? And are these now Bigfoot because they're wild and semi-intelligent stuff? Sometimes it does not fit. It obviously doesn't fit for all of it, but would they be wearing animal pelts and stuff? And sometimes that's why they look like Bigfoot. Or
Okay, so when I consider is Bigfoot an alien, I don't think so, and this is why. When there's multiple reasons why, but my native elder's creation story told me the creation story, and he talked about how the creator clapped his hands and sparks flew, and then this was created. The universe was created, and then the planets and the sun and all these things were created. And then when it got to be creating the specific life on Earth, it was the plants and then the animals and the insects and all the life that's on the planet. And the very last thing that was created was man, the human, right? And all of the other life on the planet knew that we were the youngest baby on the planet. That we were the newest thing on the planet. And so they agreed to take care of us and to look out for us. So all life on the planet, animals, birds, fish, insects, trees, plants, grass, is our older brothers and sisters. Everything. And everything is looking out for us and is willing to give their lives for us, to take care of us and to teach us, because we are the youngest baby on this planet. Okay, so that's in the creation story, that we are the last thing that came here. The last thing, the newest thing, the one that does not know how it belongs yet, and that everything else is here to help us, to teach us, because they know where they fit and we don't. Okay, so that's the creation story that I was told. I mean, it's a very small, condensed version of that story.
obviously, yeah.
But the essence of it is there for what I'm trying to point out here. So then when you look at skeletal setup of all the different ape primates, okay, if you set them up and you look at them, okay, and if you were to put Sasquatch in there, what they look like, right? All of these primate creatures are, if they're standing up, their arms are almost down to their knees. They have almost no neck, right? All of them fit that model. Put us in there, we don't fit that model. We don't fit that model at all.
Right.
We're the thing that does not fit. You can see that all these other things are very similar. Put us in there, one of these things is not like the others, right?
Exactly. And more than that, more than one way, our bones are not as dense. We're not as robust. We don't have the muscle density and growth and a whole bunch of things that, if we were from this planet, every other animal has these features of. We don't have fur. We have to use practically everything else to survive.
So yeah, and also we're the only one that sweats water. We are a non-marine animal that's sweating water. Do you know how dangerous that is for a creature that's made mostly of water? That it doesn't fit.
It's another oddity. You're right.
Other animals can do that. Dogs sweat through their panting. They can regulate their body temperature that way. I mean, we do not fit here. And even in various different native stories from different tribes, they talk about the star people, that we come from them. We come from the stars. We don't come from here. All these creation stories say that, right?
A lot of them were, I think some, like the Anasazi, come from like the Earth, from the star people of the Earth and the ant people and stuff. But it's all the same. It's
Okay, so
we were
I'm going to tell you
created.
something about that. I'll tell you something about that. So I was watching TV one day, and there was a show on there where they were talking about the Hope, and the Hopi were
The
talking about
Hopi,
the two.
yes.
The Hopi were talking about the two hearts, and they were saying about how they were forced out of their homes by the two hearts. They were living under the ground. They were living in the earth under the ground in the third world. And then the two hearts came. And when the two hearts came, they were forced out of their homes and into the fourth world. And so they popped up out of the ground into where they are now, right? And I was like feeling quite offended by this because I'm a two heart. One of my Indian names literally means two heart. Okay.
Ah,
And I was like, what? And so I went to my elder and I was like, I just watched this show and the Hopi are saying this. What's their deal? And I was like upset. And I'm like, is he talking about us? And he's like, okay, here's the thing you got to understand about the Hopi. Hopi are code talkers. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, the Hopi are code talkers. They're all over the TV code talking. And if you don't know the code, you don't understand what they're saying. He said, what they're saying is the medicine people, the ways of the old ways of the people that we were not allowed to do anymore because they took those rights away. If we wanted to practice our spirituality and teach our ways and keep those things alive, we had to hide. We had to go underground. We had to go underground. But when the two hearts came, we came up out into the open again. They're code talking.
yeah, that happens a lot and stuff, especially when you go on TV because they only reveal so much information that they want people to know, and there's always dozens of books, probably more, on the information they don't tell you related to it, and it's just always been fascinating with all these legends and stuff because it's the historical side of this whole world, this continent that we believe the European side and the Asian side of all these stories being real from their timeline. And you jump into the native timeline, and all of a sudden it doesn't. It's not real. It's not. These stories are not happening. These teachings aren't worth anything. But very fascinating, and I think we discover more and more that this land is not the new land. It's been conquered and warred and lived upon for millennia.
Very sure. Like when people talk about isn't a burial ground of some type, I'm like, pretty much the whole East Coast is a burial ground of some type.
I mean, yeah,
Right?
we do find a lot of stone, maybe circles and a lot of stones piled up that are in very odd places that we definitely feel that no white person is doing that, in the middle of the woods on top of a ridge, usually rocks fall down stuff, but some of these spots definitely feel like, I don't know if it's Native American stuff or mound builder stuff, it's very hard to tell, but some of these areas do have a vibe to them, and Bigfoot activity, maybe other activity too. Well, what's your thoughts on some of that stuff? Do you have any actual like mounds, rock mounds, and not necessarily on the East Coast, because the more you get to the East Coast, the more the settlers did make those sort of things. But I'm talking about maybe in your area. Michigan has that. We have famous stone circles that, again, the natives say they didn't build. These other people built, and
the effigy mounds are what I find extremely fascinating. And the effigy mounds are that's not me.
Chad.
That was your 8 photos coming through. Yes, it
came
was you.
through. Do you
It
like
was
those?
on my phone.
I tried to get them on here, but I'm doing stuff I'm not on my phone, so I can't easily do that.
When I see you in person, I'll show you the video that those photos came from. They're screenshots of his pause video because it moves really fast. Anyway,
That's awesome.
yeah. So and then I'll show you on Google Earth. I'll bring you right to them, and because I can sometimes see them from satellite, and I'll show them.
Well,
to you.
I can show you an orb right now, real quick. Hold your point. You were gonna say. This was this. That happens a lot. This was an orb that was caught in a certain area by a good friend of ours on the trail. Pretty
Nice.
bright.
Yeah, it is.
A little bit of close up.
Hmm.
About the same size we seen. Mine was white, gray-ish, but same area as we have Bigfoot activity. It's very it's interesting. We don't know. I mean, don't know what it is.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Talking about the natives and stuff, and what do you have any reports of deer woman or deer man? Have you asked your elders about that one?
I asked about Dear Woman, but yeah, I haven't heard anything that
What about the like
they know.
Wendigo?
Wendigo. So what I've heard about the Wendigo is
Wendigo.
okay,
It's
different stories from different people. So the first story that I'll tell you is that the Wendigo was started to talk about back in the days when the people were starving. And they were told that no matter what, no matter how much you're starving, you cannot eat a dead person. Because if you do, then the Wendigo spirit can come and possess you and make you do these things.
right.
If you eat human flesh, it doesn't matter how starving you are, you just cannot do that because the Wendigo would come and possess you after that point. So that was in a way to scare people away from cannibalism, I guess. And then I met someone that was dating a girl that I knew. And she totally freaked out because she was taking pictures of him one day. And in the picture, behind him was like in and behind him, because it was larger than him, it was this giant shadow being that had horns and was very demon looking, like, I guess. It was like shadowy. And it showed up in some of the pictures that she took of him. And when she showed them to him, because she was afraid and she was like dating him, he told her it's because he is a Wendigo. And that was one of his Indian names that he was given by his grandmother, that it literally meant that he was demon spirit of the lake.
That's not a good name to pick.
I know, and he was from my reservation. And yeah, and I was like, why would your grandmother be?
Right.
And so she was afraid, and she said that she trusted me. So he's like, well, talk to her about it then. So then we had this group conversation, and I was like trying to be objective and listening and taking it all and looking at the very interesting pictures. That's for sure. And it looked very much like something that had been described to me before, in a video that I wasn't supposed to know about, that was captured on some video surveillance in an area where a crime was committed. They literally saw the same type shape of a shadow being step out of the person who committed the crime. And it was on a video surveillance on the reservation. And I wasn't supposed to know about that. And so when I saw the pictures of looking like that, I was like, okay, well, that's something. And
A little bit.
And that was supposedly a Wendigo. So that's what they supposedly look like. Demon spirit of the lake.
Right. They're described differently.
I
in
know
all
that
sorts
they're
of
described
sizes
differently.
and just yeah.
Right.
I mean,
But that's I mean, I've seen the picture, and that
that's
was
the scary. That's a scary description of them.
Yeah. And so the kid that actually committed the crime had been turning his hair up with gel into horns. He had started doing that like right before he committed the crime. And then that
That is very weird, and in winter plays a role, and of spirit comes in winter, and because starvation and stuff. It's very unique legend and myths and stuff that the tribes talk about. One of those again. This spiritual world was very closer than it is today with us. It's very fascinating.
What have you heard about the Blackwater Panthers? What have you heard about that?
No sightings and stuff, of course, but just legends of them being in the Great Lakes and in the waterways and being in different sizes, of course, stuff being described a little differently too. Of course, they're
How
described
are they
as.
described to you?
I think they have a body of a basically they're a cat-like face. They have kind of a body of maybe like a dragon type of creature, and the sizes range from 20 feet to I don't know 60 feet plus. Out of the water, tipping canoes over. Um, but also they're spiritual too. So
And
that
that they
was
come
that.
after people. They come
They,
after people who do bad things.
that
Right.
was always that was yeah. I was always one that I was always skeptical of. I was like, well, how does this creature, described as this, live in the Great Lakes and do all this stuff, but no modern sightings, of course, but
But then
typically
there are sightings of the giant snakes,
we do have a lot of giant, serpents and sea serpents and stuff, but are
giant
they?
black snakes. And
Uh,
then up in Minnesota here, there are reports of what they call the dragons. And the dragons are black, four-legged. They look like giant lizards. They're about 3 feet tall, but they're black and they're kind of serpent-like, but they have 4 legs.
That's
So I
very
wondered
interesting.
about
Do you think that is a water panther?
But they were called dragons by Paul Buffalo in his autobiography, and it's online. You can read about it.
Is that in Minnesota? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a report from Minnesota of a 20-foot lizard chasing a Bigfoot, seen by a small plane pilot in Minnesota, northern Minnesota.
Wow, chasing a
Yes.
Bigfoot.
Yes.
What color was the lizard?
I do not remember offhand, but I think it was dark color, possibly black.
I've never heard of that. Have you, Jen?
Well, yeah, you've heard of the dragons.
Well, yeah, the dragon,
right.
but not what he's talking about.
Very well could be a dragon.
It was described as a lizard. So
A giant lizard that's
yeah,
dark in
giant
color
lizard.
with 4 feet, right? Yeah,
Pretty much.
sounds like a
Yes.
dragon to me.
Exactly. It could be these water panthers and living in these lakes and stuff. What we consider the bottom of the lake is not the bottom of the lake. It's all that muck and smushy. So you could go deeper and like turtles do and stuff. So why can't some of these creatures do that and possibly find a tunnel where these lakes are connected to these ponds and streams and swamps? You just never know. And surface, maybe they don't have to eat all that often. Get a big enough meal, like reptiles and stuff do. They have to digest, and it takes a little bit. Like alligators, they only have to eat so much a month. Yes, Chad.
Well, like we talked about earlier, and I would love to circle back because Jenna had mentioned something. Where do these things go and hide? Like Jenna had said, migration. It's obvious they have to move at some point somewhere, but they don't probably move far. They have their areas. The most likely way to get underground would be in these lakes, into these caverns that are these under river cuts, because otherwise we would find these. We would find these openings. So these openings they would have to probably, if for them to make sense, most likely be underwater.
Well, and I do think that there are some that do travel, and when they do travel, I think it's possible that they're following the rivers, because the rivers are in and out of here, and they're always surrounded by trees, no matter if they're cutting through farmland or not. Like, we'll get reports of Bigfoot in Minnesota. It's usually by a river. If there isn't a lake nearby, it's on a river. So, we had reports of Bigfoot reports even just outside of town here, where there's almost no forest, but it's just right along the river. They're there.
And was it farmland, I'm guessing, right?
Right outside of town, actually, there's a cemetery. And then like a little woodsy area.
I guess at nighttime, one could traverse the landscape into town and out of town without being seen, right?
Yeah.
That's all you need. Bigfoot are pretty much everywhere. And it being Minnesota, I would assume, is a little bit more rural than Michigan. Probably more Sasquatch up that way too, especially since you can go up to Canada.
further north you go, the more woodsy it gets, and the more lakes you get, and um, yeah, and there's a lot of swamps and bogs, and people generally don't go into those at all because they're dangerous. The cedar
They
swamps,
are.
you don't go into those ever. You can fall through that bog and never be seen again. It's worse than falling through the ice. Try to find your way out. You can't.
Yeah, we've experienced some of that stuff. We
You've
do actually
fallen
get
through?
not particularly in that cedar bog, but I've fallen through some muck and some other stuff. Yes, I've done that a few times on purpose and accidental.
I'm going to tell you, underneath the floating bogs, this is a survival trick. A lot of times, if you put your hand underneath, you can pull out. It's a bog potato.
Yeah, edible. Oh, looks,
Oh no, we
We lo-
missed
we-
it.
we
He
lost
just
you a little
asked
bit.
edible.
Yes, it's edible. It's a bog potato underneath the floating bog. You can
I-
generally there will be bog potatoes.
another great food source that I really didn't know about. But yeah, again, you're on this floating landmass, and who knows what's all the way down in there? There could be all these other cryptids and stuff that again.
Lily pads, the tuber roots of a lily pad are really big around, and they're long, and they're edible. They don't taste good, but they're edible.
As long as they're edible and they're good for you, that's all that matters. And Sasquatch utilizes everything,
Yeah.
especially in these bogs and stuff.
And cattails,
Oh, yeah.
completely edible, and they're tasty.
Yes.
I'm telling you.
And
Underneath they're the tall grass-like looking thing that's usually in the ditches,
the
right?
corn dog has the corn dog at the
Yes.
end.
Yes.
Yeah, not the corn dog. Don't eat that.
Not that part
but
though.
you can peel from the very tip. You can peel the green part down, and the very tip is going to be this is like survival stuff. Literally, the natives use that as like a needle and thread. So you peel the tip off, which is your
Right.
needle. You peel it all the way down. That's your thread, and you can then stitch. But then you peel the rest of the green off, and you eat what's inside, and it tastes a lot like cucumber. Very, very good.
That's right, and it's they grow like wildfire. I mean, it's just so many. You can never really get rid of them.
I think that when people are seeing Bigfoot by the roadways, I think that maybe they're gathering the cattails.
I have noticed in one area where there was a bunch of cattails, and all of a sudden, I walked by it, and it's like something came through and just like took a bunch. And I was wondering, is that the people? I mean, why would the person do that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And
Well, for starters, they're protected. We're not supposed to, especially on state land when we see it.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. Cattails are protected in state land, yes.
well, anything is. You can't destroy anything on state land
Mm-hmm.
or federal property.
Oh,
they're
federal
for
property
food.
though.
Mm-hmm. Or state, federal or state. Any of these games and sanctuaries, and this is where he's talking, we'll find it. One day there'll be this big patch of cattails. Next time I'll come, it's like they're all broken off and gone.
Hmm.
What about in the ditches, though? Like, can you take it out of the ditch?
On your property and stuff.
Yeah,
Unless
it'd be the
it's
public
protected.
easement. I guess you could.
Protected wetland, you can't touch them.
Okay, I've gone to the Wild Food Summit, which is put on by the White Earth Reservation in Minnesota. And, in that, it's like a 5-day camping extravaganza where you're gathering wild foods and learning how to gather them, identify them, and then prepare them and eat them.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah. So we gathered cattails and we peeled them and made, we did
Bring
all
your own
that fun
salt and pepper, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have
but
salt and pepper on a cucumber. If it tastes like a cucumber, it's got it.
good. I was really in shock.
Little ranch dressing.
It wasn't the right time of year for eating the roots because the roots are more like a rutabaga, but they're ready in the fall.
I say a little salt, Chad.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, definitely gonna have to try that. There's a lot of stuff I want to try. Native foods and turtles and stuff like that.
Oh, let the
There's
turtles
12 different
live.
kinds of meat in a turtle, I've heard.
I've
12 different
tasted-
kinds.
I've tasted.
Just curious, gotta.
Well, pick one up on the road.
Well, do
Give
y'all
them
have
the
game
hangover.
feeds? Do you guys have game feeds anywhere during the summer? that you can? Do you know what a game feed is?
Yeah, it's kind of been illegal and illegal on and off the last few years, so I don't know if it's legal right now, but we don't do that.
Okay.
We do go to areas that the state plants food plots, so it basically is game feed.
Right.
And they plant more than just corn. They plant all kinds of different, like, edible things. Like where we go to the one area, the haunted area, where you found that tire Blake. Some of those fields are planted with all edible stuff, and it's for the wildlife.
Wow, that is neat. I love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I think elk is my favorite. Elk.
Really?
Elk,
I'm not a
elk is
huge
pretty
game
good.
person. I'm not a
doesn't
huge
taste
game
gamey,
person.
though. I used to
Got
get
to
it
be
from
cooked right.
Yeah,
Everything does.
but there's an elk farmer on I-94 over by Alexandria, and it's really good.
Frog
Yeah.
legs is pretty good too.
Tastes just like chicken with a little fish.
Ew, gross.
Kinda,
That sounds
kinda.
disgusting.
I'm not
Oh.
a fan of frog legs. I'm sorry. I like frogs.
All right. If you got a pile of frog legs or 2 roasted squirrels, what are you gonna eat?
Frog
I've
leg.
never had squirrel.
Squirrel.
I would
I've
try
had
the
squirrel.
squirrel.
I would not. I've
Squirrels like
got
chicken.
to love them.
No,
It's a hate-love
chicken isn't
relationship.
tough. Squirrel's tough.
Squirrel is kind of tough, but if you marinate it and cook it slow,
So you
it's
guys have
good.
actually tasted
I would
squirrel.
actually taste squirrel. I would like to
I
taste
hunt
it.
squirrel.
Well, everybody really see everybody. I mean, I can see everybody wanting to try it once. Like, I guess I would try it once, but wouldn't eat a whole squirrel. I think that was your
Well-
question, right?
Crock
They're
pot.
delicious.
That's what you do. You crock pot it and you season it.
Yeah, again, it's growing up and being fascinated with native culture, then eating that. My grandpa ate a lot of squirrel and stuff on the farm. Sometimes that was the only way they got a meal. So I had to try, of course, dry squirrel. And it's not too bad if you cook it right.
And
Make
how
it
do you
dirty.
cook squirrel to
Crock.
make it right?
Different ways. I usually
Crock?
marinate it in whatever kind of sauce and seasoning that you like. I add a little bit of hot sauce to kill the gamey taste and spice. I fry it up sometimes. Sometimes I put it in the oven. Sometimes I put it in a crock pot. It's pretty good.
The
not too
only,
bad.
Wow.
the only way you
Fry
don't
it up like some chicken with some breading. It's not too bad.
You don't want to eat squirrel on a stick, where you take the whole squirrel, put it on a stick, and rotate it on the fire.
That's what I'm gonna do next, though.
That is,
If you do that, please take pictures.
a little bit of
Send them
barbecue
to
on it.
us.
I'm
No,
gonna say
no,
we have to have
rabbit.
a little. We have to have a little buffet when we come squatting.
You gotta have a few. You gotta have a
Yeah.
few of them to get a good meal going. But
Rabbit's far better tasting. It's closely related, but they have different diets. So rabbit's way more tender, easier to clean, easier to cook.
if you get a squirrel that's been eating a lot of nuts and stuff,
Yeah.
or in a pine tree, oh man, you can taste the pine in it. It actually is not too bad.
Oh,
Ugh.
I mean, it's obviously not a city squirrel, so I mean they're a lot cleaner out in the wild.
true.
Yeah, we're not hunting them downtown Detroit, you know.
Yeah.
Right? You're going down the
Although,
street. Hey,
that's
there's
quite
It'd be a
one.
lot
Get
bigger
it.
though.
Listen, if you could limit on squirrels in 30 minutes, easy, just sitting on a corner in downtown Detroit, they're like everywhere. I mean, literally, it's crazy. There's more squirrels than cats.
They're as big as cats too.
Obviously, because the cats might take them out.
Yeah, no, not the big one. No, I actually gave up. I gave up on disliking squirrels because they ate all my vegetables last year. They ruined all my plants. They dug everything up. So I decided, okay, this year I made an area for the squirrels with water and bird seed, and I go to it. Now I've got like 5 baby squirrels. So when you guys, I was like, oh, they're so cute, and you guys are talking about pop them on a stick. I was like, oh no.
I've saved some squirrels before. You know, I cut down trees and stuff, and had a bunch of baby squirrels that's in this log. And we have a squirrel lady that we call up, and she takes them and raises them, sets them free. So
And then
I
And you
I
hunt them and eat them.
I kind of balance itself out a little bit. Okay?
Poor things. He
Okay,
has
that's
this lady that raises these baby squirrels, lets them go, and now he's got,
right. He's providing his
there's
own
more to
game.
Sorry,
Here, take care of these. My future eatables.
I make it a little chat. I don't make it easy. I take a little 22 with some scope. One shot, one kill. So it's not like a shotgun where I can just blast away and it's like, all right, there you go.
Yeah.
I do give them a chance.
Well, you know what? You're eating them. I think there's nothing wrong with it. But what do you do with
Yeah.
the tails? Just curious.
I've kept them. I've salted them and kept them, and I've made hides out of a few of them. I've done actually.
Huh.
Some not that good if they're thrown away, but practice makes perfect. But yeah.
The tails are actually valuable to fly fishermen. If you can sell them, and they use parts of the
You
tail.
can sell them. You can give all the stuff to the DNR, and they sell them. You want to donate all the stuff you have, or you can sell them to taxidermists. You can. I can't remember what the price on them. It's like, I don't know, 10 cents or something, 5 cents a tail. They go up and down.
Rich.
No,
Now,
of course not.
unless I'm starving to death, there's two things in Michigan I will not eat unless I have to survive. One is a possum, and two is a raccoon.
Yeah.
Anything else in Michigan, I would eat.
I'm not gonna eat the raccoon unless I was starving, but I'll probably kill and eat a possum.
Oh God!
Oh no!
They're
From
our
the woods,
friends.
from the woods.
They're our friends.
Yeah, they're kind of dumb and stuff. They're not. I don't hunt them because they're kind of dumb. I shined a light at one and it came running at me, and I was just like, you're not the smartest crayon in the box. I see.
Right.
I've seen baby ones in the woods and stuff, and they're very cute, cuddly. And again, the only reason why I want to eat it is because your family and ancestors eat and stuff like that. And gotta try it at least once.
Hey, I forgot to ask you. What is your clan? Who is your clan?
I have no idea. I know my family. My great grandfather married a tribal lady.
Okay.
If you see my dad, he has black hair and he looks a little dark and stuff. You can tell. You can definitely tell from him. But it's either on both sides actually. My mom's side has the same thing. Moving to Michigan and stuff. So I've always been fascinated about it and learning about it and getting in with it. And
if you look around your home, do you have pictures or figurines of any particular type of animal around you?
Bigfoot. I always was fascinated with gorillas as a kid and wolves. That was it. And then obviously Sasquatch, but
Owls, fox, eagles, wolves, and lions. That was me.
Okay. But you're not eagles around you?
Around me, no. We have a bunch of stuff down in the basement that a bunch of stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. I would have put you at Eagle Clan.
I have no idea. It's a mystery. I'm sure if I might have to speak with an elder about stuff like that.
Here you go.
Jen, why would you say that? Why would you think he's from the Eagle Clan?
I just think he's from the Eagle Clan.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you had seen some kind of recognizable eye shape or bone structure or.
I'm Eagle Clan.
Oh my gosh, you guys are twins. No, I'm kidding.
You never know, and I will keep that in mind because maybe one day it will confirm down the road about.
Have you been named? Have you been named?
No. I do this all on my own. Never talk to any other person, elder or anything like that.
Yeah.
I know the places where I could go and stuff, but
Be named.
I gave him a couple nicknames. Does that count?
How many?
A couple.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
going to say them.
Yeah, you probably can't on the air, right, Chad?
Oh, I could.
Some of them.
I'm not gonna.
Oh.
It's
There you go,
fun.
I love you, Blake.
Being named in a ceremony is something that most white people don't understand. Like when I had my naming ceremony, I was so excited, and then you have a feast afterwards, and it's a big celebration, and everybody wants to know what you were named, and you go home off the reservation, and everybody's like, okay. And you're like,
that's a cool name,
great.
Right?
Yeah. And yeah. So
Let's go to your tribe, Blake. We'll go up there. They'll name you. I'll sit in the truck. You go get named. because when I'm not native.
I don't know. My tribe seems to be just being out in the woods. That's where I'm always drawn to be. So that's where I usually like to be and feel best at. That's probably why we're in the woods all the time.
Well, my whole perspective of life changed when I was named. Everything changed. I stopped being Jennifer because Jennifer's just the name of this body, and that's not who I am. I'm the spirit that lives in the body, that lives on without the body. When Jennifer, the body, dies, I'm the spirit that lives on.
That's
And
right.
so then the spirit name it's not really an Indian name, but they call it an Indian name, but it's really a spirit name. You name the spirit inside your body, separate from your body. And so my whole perspective of everything just changed after I was named because I became like immortal at that point. I was like, I'm never going to die. So
Yeah. It's all fascinating stuff. Very, very interesting. And it's been a wonderful show. I'm so glad I was able to have both of you on. You guys are just fantastic. Let's plug this conference that's coming up that you gals are going to.
yeah,
Plug it.
we're going to be at the Michigan Bigfoot Conference. It's going to be awesome. Everybody has to come. It's July 17th, 2021 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Be there or be square, people.
That's right. It's a fantastic lineup. We don't like to brag, but it's probably one of the better ones this year. Not to brag or anything, but some of these people, like Adam Davis and Davies and Robert Kreider, they don't do conferences. They hardly do talk shows or interviews. So this would probably be one of the only chances you can meet both of them at the same conference together.
I'm excited.
I am too.
Yeah. Top of with the She Squatchers themselves. How can you not miss out on them? Cliff Rackman, we got Igor from Russia, Ken Gerhard, Jason Kenzie. You gals know Jason Kenzie. He's an awesome guy.
I'm so excited to meet Jason Kenzie.
And awesome. He just came out with some documentary he just dropped. He's an animal planet photographer. We also have a more woo side room that's going to be talked about, the paranormal side of this, everything that's going on in these areas with paranormal aspect with Bigfoot and the areas around it. So we're going to have that discussion with people like Miranda Young. She's the ghost biker chick. And Janice Carter. We also have Carrie Arnold showing up, and we have some local speakers like Val Safala and Robert Daigle, who's a godfather of Michigan research, Chatan Noir, Steve Ward, and Robin McRae. So awesome lineup, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. all day event. We got catering, we got food. There's a restaurant inside the hotel. There's a bar at the hotel, so it's going to be fun. Dinner time's going to be cool. We're going to have a lot of laid-back activities afterwards, a lot of discussions, talk. We actually have a room. I know there's a lot to talk about, people, but there's a lot going on. And there's a whole room dedicated to cast collection. And this would probably be the third largest, definitely top 5 in the U.S. on display to be seen. And some of these casts definitely have not been seen or made public, I believe. So
We have a couple.
yeah, we will have some of our casts on display too.
Nice.
Yeah. It's going to be an awesome event. It's going to be fun. Glad to have everyone showing up. Definitely going to be huge. A huge venue. Everything's good. All the COVID and everything else is more laid back now. So we're actually having even more capacity available if
Yay.
needed. Everything's going great. So
Excited.
get your tickets now because
Yes.
this is one heck of a lineup.
Come see us.
Yes.
I'm excited to be
Exactly.
in Michigan.
I
I'm excited. I've never spent much time. I mean, I don't think I've been to Michigan, like for real. Like,
We've driven through it, haven't we?
I don't think so, Jenna.
Oh. Well, I
Oh,
thought we
wait.
drove through every state.
I don't think you guys would drive through Michigan unless you're going to Michigan.
Or
Unless you're
maybe
Unless you-
Canada.
if you went north from Minnesota to the UP, I could see you guys driving down. But
Yeah, no, I don't think we've been through Michigan, Jenna. I'm pretty excited.
we are
Well,
excited to have you
then.
guys.
Yay! Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having us on the show. That's so awesome.
Thanks
Oh
for
yeah,
F-
thanks for coming on.
Do you have effigy mounds or petroglyphs nearby?
You have to ask Shatan. Shatan would be the one for that.
Not necessarily in our areas, but there's definitely more famous ones, and there's some spots where we do have like rock mountains, like I was talking about. But
And your local lake monsters, Shatan.
yeah, we got a bunch of rivers and lake monsters and a bunch of stuff that just, a lot of missing people spots in the areas too. So you guys need to be ready and stuff. It's gonna be a little crazy dog man, and Michigan has everything.
Excited.
It's weird.
I am too. I'm so ready. I'm so ready for after the event, actually, because this sounds so exciting to go out with you guys. So,
Yeah, sorry, expedition. Yeah, we're having an extreme expedition. We're taking practically all the speakers out for a week in undisclosed locations that definitely, hopefully, provide some great evidence for the people and for the community. And we're definitely glad that you guys are involved with that, because we'll definitely be using you as bait. Sorry.
all right. That's okay. Actually, I'm so sorry. I hope that wasn't a secret.
Oops.
And I just messed
Well,
it up.
I didn't mean to say that. But we are definitely going to use your talents and your remote viewing and your personality and energy out in the field, because definitely an asset.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for another live show. It's been awesome. And we'll be back next week with some amazing guests. And without further ado, guys, have a good night.